Hi everyone, I'm Hayley and thank you for joining me today to discover how I used photography and Photoshop to create a water-filled room for my image, Blue Girl. So like many of my images, Blue Girl came about purely because I wanted to try making a room look like it was filled with water. So there was no specific plan or idea when I was creating this image. I just knew that I wanted to try filling a room with water, and so that's what I did. But as always, my images take on a life of their own, and it became about a girl who has cried so much she's filled a room and then kind of created her own ecosystem. So that was the real meaning that I ended up portraying with this image. But to begin, I shot myself wearing a blue wig and a little gold dress that I'd picked up at a charity shop. I had moved the couches in my living room. There's usually couches here, so I could have a blank wall. And to my right is a big window, so there's some natural light coming in. And I just really love the look of natural window light. It's just so beautiful. Anyway, so I don't know if you know, there's a doll called I think it's called a no-name doll, actually. I'm not really sure. But it's basically a girl standing in a Hessian dress and she's got her hand out and she comes with a fake tear. I was kind of channeling her when I created this. I don't know why, but anyway. So I had a blue wig that I got off eBay for about 15 bucks, my op-shop dress, and then I shot a series of myself kind of looking forlorn. Then I had my mum put some fake tears on my cheeks, so that will make sense later, but basically she just popped a little couple of tears on, I photographed that, and then I took the wig off, put my hair up, and had this big pillow stuffing that I'd got from a sewing supplies shop and just popped that on my head. I like this image all on its own, but anyway, that's another story. So in Photoshop, let us turn off all the layers so we can work through them. I'm glad no one has ever asked me how many layers my images have, but as you can see, it is a lot. So here we go. I first photographed the room without me in it, and that is what this is. Now, presumably, the wall is not this clear, so I would have done some cloning to get rid of any patches. Then I took this very same wall and I changed the perspective. So Photoshop has some perspective tools under Control or Command T, your transform tools, and then I just would have kind of mirrored and flipped it and put it into position. Then it did the same on the bottom, did the same on the right. Now, the walls still look a little bit messy because they will be underwater shortly. Changed the color of the room. It was a little bit too warm. I wanted it to be a cool tone. This is the shadow. So basically, I didn't fake the shadow like I normally would in this image. I kept the shadow from the original image, but it's masked very badly, but I'm presuming this bit will be hidden under the main shot shortly. I took several images of the hair. So there was the one where she was just sitting still, but then I sort of picked it up and threw it around to give the hair some movement, looking like it was actually floating underwater, and brighten that up. Then we pop in our main image, brightened her up so that she fits because she's really quite kind of dark and green in this image. That's where I pop in my cloud from Cloudhead. Oh, she looks so sad. And then brighten that up and made it even more blue as well. That was the flick of the hair on the other side. And I just kind of was working a little bit more on that one on the right. And then brought up the exposure to drop out the blackness. Did even more work to the hair. So I was just messing around with different shots here, obviously. And this was the final shot I landed on. Brighten that up. Looks kind of freaky right now. This is adding in the little tiny tear that I showed you before. So I masked everything away except the tear. Next, I put in the boat. So the boat was photographed at a place that I was house sitting at the time. They had a lot of these kind of model boats and I just photographed them. I didn't know what I was going to do with them at the time, but I like to have little things that I can then edit into scenes in the future. And this one paid off. This was a real pain to mask out though. So next time I would get down lower and make sure there was only white behind because that was a laborious task, let me tell you. Then I completely changed the color of that. So made it way more green and brought up the exposure. Next we have our water. I got the water line initially. Now that is from a picture I took at a zoo with some little otters swimming, maybe beavers, not sure. Then just filled that out even more. I think the same shot again. Yep. Brightened it up. And then the same shot again. I made it much, much bigger. And just kind of really what that is doing is adding the toning and a little bit of watery texture overall. Change the color of that to be more blue. Then I have got like a blue underwater scene that is just water. So I've put that over the top here. Next, I've popped in some rain. So rain is fairly easy to create using special filters in Photoshop. It's a bit of a process, but once you know how, it's not so difficult. Again, that's something I teach inside my course, Exposing Illusions. I teach you all kinds of techniques for changing the weather, but rain is one of them. And then just played with the color and tone of that so it fits a bit better. Use the curves to darken down that water even more. Now we'll really get into our toning. So that would have just been to tie the toning of everything together, and then I can affect it all the same way. So I like to make sure that everything just looks really flat and like it fits together, and then I can just start playing with the overall colors and it affects everything the same. Hopefully that makes sense. So this one I just brightened up the top here and made the bottom quite dark. Just some toning. Here I put in my birds. So they were shot probably, presumably on holiday somewhere. Like to take pictures of birds quite a lot because I do use them a lot in my composites. Made them fit a bit better. Now I am doing my final toning, so that is a really kind of warm tone again, even more. So we'll have a bunch of textures in here that I would have used just to create kind of more of a stormy scene. So with textures, I just pop them on the top and then change the blend mode to something I like so they fit the scene a lot better. I talk about textures, I think, in a couple of my YouTube videos. I think there's a how to add textures to flowers one that I did a couple of weeks back. So that will show you that technique, but also I go much more into depth in using textures and overlays inside my course Exposing Illusions. And we're pretty much done here. Now all I did was sharpen the whole scene, which probably won't even be noticeable to you, but if you zoomed in, you would see it. Now on screen, this image I think doesn't look as good as it does in print. There's a couple of things that stand out to me. The birds are too sharp. They should have been blurred a little bit. It seems dark and murky, but when you print it, it actually looks really, really nice. And in fact, even though I created this in, probably 2015, 16, it's actually just been accepted into a current exhibition. So that will be going up very soon. And it has been quite popular in the exhibition circuit, actually, and I've sold quite a few prints of this one. So if you'd love to learn how to create underwater scenes, because I do use this technique a lot, it's one I love to do and it's usually very popular. So if you'd love to learn how to do the specifics of underwater images, I've given you an overview today, but if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, then join me inside Exposing Illusions and I'll show you the process for creating underwater images. And that's how you create an underwater scene, the most popular technique that I teach. If you've enjoyed learning about how I create my artworks, I invite you to hit subscribe and stick around for my next artwork tour in 3 weeks' time. Until then, happy creating!